Hey guys, this is John with For the Love of Gear Reviews, and today I thought we would talk a little bit about stoves, different stove systems that there are, pros and cons on each one of them, and just why you may pick one over the other, as well as talking about what stoves you cannot use when you are in a state that has an active fire ban. That's a thing, for example, in Colorado that we encounter a lot during fire season. If there's a fire ban, you can only use a stove that has an on-off switch, and some of these do, and some of them don't, and we'll talk about that. So we are going to do a little overview of your Esbit stove, Esbit tablet stoves, your alcohol stoves, the super fun wood burning stove. We've got the MSR WhisperLite International here, a multi-fuel burning stove. Then we have the MSR Reactor, which is kind of an integrated pot and burner type system. And then we have the MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe here, which is just kind of your simple canister stove that can take any pot on the top of it. So we're going to go ahead and dive in and talk about just kind of the pros and cons of each system, and then I'll show you each one individually. Okay, so I realized that I did that whole video and then I didn't talk about the pro and con of each stove individually before we did the dive into each one. So we're going to do that really quick. So for the Esbit stoves, pro and con on that. Pro, super lightweight, super duper packable, and that's pretty much it, honestly. The cons, I'd say it's not versatile. Yeah, you can't use it if there's a fire ban, and you have to, depending on the size of your trip, carry a bunch of the Esbit tablets, which can be a pain in the neck. And the tablets themselves they have like this weird little fishy odor to them. So yeah, alcohol stove for the pro. Again, really, really, really lightweight, pretty versatile. Like, I'm happy to use it to boil water, to dehydrate my food, to just make a cup of coffee. You can get the fuel almost anywhere, and they're really simple to use. The cons, I would say, they're definitely a little bit more advanced. You can start a major fire and have a really bad time with them. You also, I would not recommend ever using this in the vestibule of your tent because of aforementioned huge problems. And then also, you cannot use it when there is a fire ban. Moving on to the MSR WhisperLite International, the pros there are it is the most versatile stove out of all of them. It can use a lot of different fuels to burn, and if you do the universal option, then you can also do a canister, which is really great. Quick boil times, about 3 to 4 minutes, depending on the size of your pot. You can use a pan with them. They've got great simmer control. They work in all 4 seasons. They're great for melting snow. There's a lot of pros about the stove, the MSR WhisperLite. The only cons I would say is just, again, it's another more advanced type stove. You have to prime the stove, and there's sometimes a little bit of a fireball that happens. So I don't recommend using it inside of your vestibule unless you're extremely comfortable with using it. And then just, it's a little bit more cumbersome. It's definitely bulkier than the other stoves that are available. It's heavier, that's for certain. And then, the gas weighs a pretty good amount. If you're out for a long time, you got to carry a lot of fuel, and that all adds up. But overall, it's definitely the most versatile stove that's out there. I mean, highly recommend. I can't think of any reason to tell you not to get an MSR WhisperLite. The MSR Reactor, pros and cons. Pro, very, very quick boil time. It is really lightweight, very simple to use, really, really packable. It's great at melting snow. Really good for use in alpine environments where all you're going to do is melt snow and boil water. As far as the con goes, you have limited options in terms of what pot or pan you'll use on it. Pretty much only a pot will work on it. And then con, it's designed really for melting snow. I don't think it does it necessarily better than the WhisperLite. I think it's probably on par. It's an easier to use unit for sure, but that cold weather performance of the fuel canister, it just doesn't do a great job. But not a ton of cons. And if you're looking for an integrated system with the burner and the pot kind of integrated together, the reactor is really, really good. And then you're just kind of your general stoves like the MSR Pocket Rocket. Pro and con of that, it's mostly pros. Honestly, it's lightweight, it's packable, it's versatile, it's easy to use, it's durable and reliable. And then as far as cons, I just say it has poor cold weather performance. Not the best wind blocking either, but I mean, come on, get a little bit creative, put it behind a rock, and then you should be fine in the 3 minutes that it takes to boil your water. So you can't go wrong with a stove like the Pocket Rocket, and that's it. So okay. Now that I've gone and made this other video about all the pros and cons of all of them individually, we're going to jump into each one individually, and I'll probably talk about the pros and cons again in that, but this was a more exhaustive list. Okay, here we go. Check it out. So the Esbit tablet stoves, these things are really, really nice. I mean, they weigh roughly 20 grams, so absolutely nothing. If you bring a windscreen, that's going to add a little bit of extra weight. But these do a really great job of just boiling water, and that's it. So there's a square platform right here that you are going to actually place the Esbit fuel tablet on, and they come in a range of different sizes. But typically, one tablet is good for one boil, and it'll take roughly 10 to 12 minutes to boil your water. So if you're doing just like a simple overnight and you've got one dehydrated meal with you, these are a really, really good thing to bring with you. I love it. And you can just pair this with, super lightweight titanium pot, something like that. And it's just going to sit on there just like that. And that's really nice. So the one thing about these is that the Esbit tablets, you have to carry, if you're going to try to boil a lot of things, you need to carry enough tablets to make sure that you can do that. And so that can wind up kind of weighing a little bit more than your standard isobutane fuel canister. And also, these do not have an on-off switch, so you cannot use these when there is an active fire ban. Okay, so let's get a little bit closer, and I'm going to show you the rest of this stuff. Okay. So right here we have our alcohol stove. These are a really, really nice option. Again, that are super lightweight. You do need to bring some denatured alcohol with you, but you can get that in really almost any place. And so to use this, you'll open up this little vessel here, fill it with the denatured alcohol, seal it up, It has to be completely full. Then you got a little bit on the outside here, a little of the alcohol fuel on the top of this here, and then you'll light it. It'll need to prime for a minute, but then you are good to boil. And again, these take probably 8 to 10 minutes to boil water, and you can put any kind of pot that you want on top of this as well. These are a really good option. A lot of ultralight backpackers like these, but again, you cannot use this if there is an active fire ban. There's no on-off switch, and you can very easily knock this over and just start a terrible mess. It's really bad. All right, moving on, we've got this is one of my favorite pieces of equipment, and I used to use it a lot when I lived in Minnesota. So this is the Vargo titanium wood burning stove. It's a very simple folding design that has a little door hinge here. And yeah, so as you would imagine, you just put sticks in here and, you know, whatever you can find. You light it, you got a fire going in there. This nice door hinges so you can add more fuel easily. And then, yeah, you just use wood to boil your water. It's really nice. Boil times are pretty decent at, you know, maybe 8 minutes, 10 minutes. It really depends on how much fuel you're putting in here. Only downside with these is obviously fire ban. Can't use them. It can be a little difficult to get it going. Certainly more difficult than your typical canister stove. The plus side is that you don't have to carry any fuel with you at all, which is really nice. And they're like really, really, really incredibly light. Yeah, so that's that. This is really nice. Like if you live in the Midwest or the Northeast, these are really, really nice. I use these a lot on my bike packing trips because they fold down to nothing at all practically. All right. So next up, we've got the WhisperLite International. So this stove is kind of a staple in the mountaineering world and four-season backpacking. So one great thing with this stove is that it can use pretty much any fuel. I've got white gas in here, but it can do gasoline, kerosene, I believe alcohol as well. It just does a ton of things, and this is the WhisperLite International. They make a universal version that actually you can plug a canister stove into as well, and so that's really nice. So essentially you prime this bottom area here. You'll prime that you get it full of white gas, which you can do. There's a switch, there's a control mechanism on the fuel tank. So you'll get that bottom cup primed, and then you'll light it, and that is going to heat this element right here. And then when you turn the stove back on, this heat will turn the liquid into a gas, and you'll have a really nice rocking and rolling fire. And boil times are roughly three minutes, I find. And with this, you can use, you know, any pot or pan. In my winter setup, this is what I'll do, and then I'll fill the pan up with snow and put it in here. So the WhisperLite is really nice for a number of reasons. One, it uses the white gas, so you don't need to worry about temperature. It's perfect in all four seasons. Two, it's plenty easy to find the fuel that you need for the canister anywhere. Number three, it's a super durable piece of equipment. I've had mine for 5 years now, and I've never had to use the maintenance kit, which quite frankly I probably should. But we'll mark that down as a potential con as well. So here is a is a maintenance kit that you'll need to use depending on how long and how often you are using your WhisperLite. The other thing too is that it's heavier than other stoves, it's bulkier, and it's more complicated to light because you have to use this big fuel canister, and that is kind of can be a little bit intimidating the first time around. And then you can also use, I have these folded up, but just an aluminum heat reflector to go on the base, and then a windscreen that just goes around the stove. All right, so then we are going to take a look at the MSR Reactor. And the Reactor is one of the best stoves for melting snow. So if you're a mountaineer and primarily you're going to either melt snow for your drinking water and you're just going to boil water, this is a great option. There's no simmer control on here, not really an effective one anyway. MSR uses this really funky burner, which is a radiant heat burner. And so what happens is when you have it lit and you set your pot on top of it, the pot here is shaped to fit precisely onto the reactor burner unit. So the heat exchange is really super efficient. It melts snow really fast and it boils water super fast. One of the downsides is that you can only use the reactor pot. Only the reactor pot will work with it, or any accessories that they make specifically for the reactor. Because it has this special radiant burner design, whatever you put on there is going to have to nest inside of it, on top of it rather. And so that can be kind of a bummer. But if you just use the MSR system, then it's totally fine. And this is a 2.5 liter pot, and they make it, I believe, in a 1.2 and a 1.8. The 2.5 is great for 2 people, for melting enough snow for 2 people. That's really nice. So the downside of this, there's really not many. I would say that cold weather performance, even though it's supposed to be really good, it's not going to be as good as something that uses white gas. But these isobutane fuel canisters, no matter what stove it is, they just don't do great in colder temperatures, because as you use them, they cool down, and then the pressurized gas turns into a liquid, and it's just not super efficient. But other than that, it's super lightweight, made of titanium. Everything fits inside of this pot really nicely, and yeah, it will boil water super quick. Okay, moving on here. We have the MSR Pocket Rocket Deluxe. And this type of stove is just really, it's about the most simple that there is. So you've got your actual stove unit here, which just screws right onto the fuel canister. On this model, they even included the piezo igniter, so that you just got to hit a little button and it will get the stove firing. It works probably 90% of the time, and if it's not working, then you can always just light it with a lighter, and that'll work just fine. And then yeah, any stove will go on top of that, or pan if you need it to. This particular pot comes with a little pot gripper so that you can pull it off the flame easily. And this whole stove system together weighs about 9 ounces. The stove itself is 2.9 ounces, so it is extraordinarily lightweight, and can go with you on any adventure. These work really nice. All right, and so I'll show you here how this guy will ignite really nicely. It's not all that windy out, so Boom. Just like that. And then when you're all done, this is the stove unit right there. You just simply fold the arms down and that's it. It's always a little finicky to get it back into here, especially when you got cold hands in the morning. But so overall, I would say if you are your backpacker, we'll just say your general backpacker, I would point you to not necessarily this specific stove here by MSR, but something that was just really lightweight. Has an isobutane fuel canister and the stove that just screws right onto the canister. If you're just regular backpacker or hiker, this type of system works super well, and you can get them from JetBoil, Snow Peak, Primus, any number of companies, and they work great. If you are the mountaineer, alpinist type of fella, I will point you to the Reactor, and I will say the Reactor specifically. There are some other companies that make similar ones, but nothing works quite as well as the Reactor. For your more up for any type of adventure type person, no matter what season, the MSR WhisperLite, I mean, you really can't go wrong. It's been around for decades and decades, and it's worth its weight in gold, especially if you are a winter adventurer. No other stove is going to work better than the MSR WhisperLite International with the white gas in there. It's really phenomenal. And so then for the super ultra light backpacking or bike packing crowd, really, I would probably point you towards the alcohol stove. I think that this just works the best. I would certainly rather use the alcohol stove and have to carry some fuel than rely on that. I'm going to always be able to use a wood burning stove. If I just want to have a cup of coffee, I don't want to have to use something like the wood burning stove. So yeah, alcohol stove for the super ultra light folks, unless you live out in the Mountain West and you need something with an on-off switch, then you can't use these. For bike packers, I'm actually going to probably tell you to go with, short trip, use an Esbit stove because they're really great. Longer trip, you can use the alcohol stove. And one thing too, if you want to pick up a wood burning stove, you can always use this as a windscreen for your alcohol stove. And then you kind of got all your bases covered. All right. Yeah, and so that's my overview of the different stove types there are, who should use them, pros and cons, and I hope you enjoyed the video, found it informative. If you like the channel, subscribe. I'll try to put up more videos on a weekly basis, and until then, take it easy. Thanks for checking it out.